Hello, gang. Tattooed Biker here with you. Good to be back. I'm feeling a bit better, and I know I've been away for a bit. And I'm way behind in answering comments, but I promise I will read every single one. Although I probably won't have time to respond to everyone. Just know that I appreciate them all. And I love all you guys so very much. So this intro is dragging on a bit. What say you grab your gear and let's ride to Cryptid Country. I don't have any idea what I witnessed on May the 28th, 2013, but it was the most frightening experience of my life. My wife and I were camping at an RV park near Jasper, Arkansas, and we planned to be there for several days. We arrived early Saturday and got situated soon after. My wife wanted to look around the area since she had never been to the Ozarks. I was born and raised in the mountains and was familiar with the terrain and the wildlife. After we tinkered around the campsite, we decided to take a short hike through a nearby valley. There were a few caves and caverns along the way, but nothing where I would have guessed any large predator might be living. After walking for an hour, we started to head back towards the RV park. Not long after we started walking back down the trail, something caught my eye. It was in the dense thicket off the side of the trail. My wife sensed it as well and stopped to look over in the same direction. There I could see this dark, four-legged creature moving back and forth slowly through the brush. We immediately started to walk at a fast pace back towards the park. The creature was moving along as well, keeping its distance, but still tracking us. This continued for what seemed like 10 minutes until we finally reached the clearing. We got back to the campsite very shaken and nervous. In all my years growing up in these mountains, I had never seen anything comparable to it. From what I could gather, it was very large, the size of a black bear or bigger, but it moved close to the ground like a cat. It was also very dark in color. We didn't say anything to the other campers nearby. The rest of the evening was fairly quiet and peaceful up until around 2:15 a.m., and that's when we heard what sounded like a high-pitched howl coming from the distance. It was loud enough to wake both of us, and I noticed several campers were looking outside, milling around and talking about the sound. Someone said it might be a coyote, but that wasn't a coyote or anything else I'd ever heard before. The next morning, we woke around 9 a.m., and when I stepped out of the RV, a woman walked up to me and asked if I had heard the howling. I said that I did, but didn't have any idea what it was. The woman, who was camping nearby, said that she believed it to be the Ozark Howler. There had been a few sightings recently. I knew the stories about the Ozark Howler, but had never believed in any of them. Well, my wife was ready to leave ASAP. Now, I'm not sure what to think. We came home today and I looked up the Ozark Howler. There isn't much to go on. I've listened to your channel and thought you may want to get the word out. Is it possible that this creature is real? Signed, Jay. A quick narrator's note here. Information on this cryptid is scant as well as the history is vague. There's a few anecdotal accounts, but nothing to really hang your hat on, so to speak. Number 2. Dear Mr. Biker, I'll be upfront and honest with you. I'm one of those who want to believe. However, I'm also one of those who are very skeptical. I've read the books of Eric Von D, Robert Bauval, and others. Mainstream media has tickled my interest in Da Vinci and the Freemasons. For over 15 years now, I'm now in my early 30s, I've always had a love of Mayan, Incan, and ancient Egyptian societies. Maybe a year or so ago, while watching something on the History Channel, I was browsing the internet and came across your YouTube channel. I've followed you on and off since then, and your post of the lizard humanoids kind of hit home for me. I felt that if this person could come forward, then I know I'm not alone, and they may also know that they aren't alone in having some kind of experience. You see, I was born and raised in Northeast Ohio. I had a normal upbringing, or what some would call normal. My parents are still married. Went to church on Sundays. I had a dog, a picket fence, and all those things. I did a little marijuana in high school, but I rarely drink, and there's only one reported case of a mental illness in my family. When I was about 12 or 13 years old, I remember having a very vivid dream where I was sitting in my living room watching TV. While watching TV, in my dream I was viewing myself in third person. Something made me want to look out through the dining room window and out through the large sliding glass door and into the backyard. When I turned my head, it was completely dark outside. And then, in an almost comedic way of film, this giant moon slid up from below the horizon, like from the 9 to 12 o'clock position on the clock. The moon was enormous, almost filling the sky, and it was brilliantly white. As I sat dumbfounded in my dream staring out the back window, something pulls my legs out from under me while I'm sitting on them on the floor. This startled me, but while in my dream I was still staring at the moon, and this voice, from what I can only assume was in my head, said, "It's almost over." This dream frightened me horribly, so much so that I woke up hot and sweaty, only to find my bedroom door partially open with a small dark figure closing the door, and without moving his mouth says, "Don't tell." I don't really recall any of the small humanoid's features. I just recall him being about 3 feet tall and seeing the figure darker than gray complexion, and nothing moved on its face when I heard it speak. Even to this day, this incident is one of the most vivid memories that I have. Seeing your photo of the reptile man was nearly like pulling a photo out of my head from that last memory. I mentioned nothing of this occurrence until just a few years ago to a close friend. I never even told my wife. Well, eventually I went off to college, came back home, got married, and had a couple of kids. And just over a year ago, I bought my parents' house. On and off since the encounter, whatever you'd like to call it, because at this point I don't know. I get this feeling like I'm being observed. Not the kind of being watched, where you're sitting up at night, unable to sleep, and you feel like someone is watching you through the window. More like something is waiting for me as I walk into rooms and sitting in the car with me while I drive to work. This was only in small increments, and I've never felt it to be constant, but since moving back home, I'm feeling it more and more so. My son, he's at the fun age of 5 now, and recently started talking about some guy he met here at home named Kyle Fokker. He tells my wife and I that he's seen him all over the house. Yeah, I know he's a child with an imagination, but the whole time I'm giving him the 20 questions about his new friend, well, I'm rattling my brain on what TV show, commercial, or movie that would have caused them to come up with this. And so far, I haven't come up with anything. While that was going on, I was in the kitchen just a week or so ago, talking to my mom, and for some reason, I felt compelled to look the other way, and I see a dark figure. This figure that I saw had an upside-down triangle for a torso and a rectangular block for a head. When I turned to look, I could tell that it looked at me, because while my brain was trying to comprehend what I'd just seen, I could see that the blockhead sort of rotated and proceeded to take an immediate left and zip its way through my stairs that go up to our bedrooms. From everything that I know, no one has ever died on this property. My grandfather, who lived with my parents and me at my current location for a few years, from the time I was 6 until I was in high school, became ill with Alzheimer's and later passed away, having a complication from a stroke, but that was at a hospice center. But I'm afraid partially for my sanity, but more for my family. Although no one has been hurt in any way, I can't help but think, like a father and husband, and want to protect my family from any possible threat. But my issue here is that, what the hell am I even dealing with? Possible alien, a spirit, a mental illness? Maybe all the above. Am I seeing one thing and my son seeing something else? I just don't know. Thanks for reading. Signed, Anonymous. Number 3. Hey TB, I'm 24 now, but this happened during my senior year in high school. I lived at home, near Winnipeg, Manitoba at the time, and by my house there were 2 elementary schools, separated by some forest, joined together by a paved bicycle walking trail through this forest. It was nighttime, and my best friend at the time and I were out walking the trail from one school to the other. To paint a good picture of what this trail was like, for some reason there were only street lights at the end of the trail, where you'd be entering school property. The trail itself was pitch black, making it super eerie at night. Anyway, my buddy and I were coming around a bend just outside of where the first school was, and where there was a light, but as we approached the bend in the trail, we finally made it to a point where the light was barely lighting up the trail anymore. I was walking with my head down, looking at my phone, and my friend was just a few steps ahead, talking. And then, just out of nowhere, he stops, and he says, "What the hell is that?" Naturally, I stopped too, and at first, I didn't see anything. I caught up to where he was a few steps ahead of me, and he said, "Look over there, in the bush, at that white thing." Now, when I saw this thing, I absolutely froze, because sitting at the side of the trail, just off the pavement, in the tall grass was, well, this hunched over, super pale and white thing that kind of looked like a person who was super skinny to the point that I could see its spine and bones and ribcage. When I first saw it, it had its back to us, and then it slowly turned towards us. It looked like a bald, pale, naked white man with absolutely no hair, severely undernourished, with sunken eyes and super long arms. Then it started moving towards us on all fours like some kind of animal. We didn't even say a word to each other. We just both immediately started running the opposite direction to get home. We sprinted the entire way back, which was about 1.5 kilometers. We told my parents when we got there, and the next day in the daylight, of course, my mom and I went back where my friend and I saw this thing. And sure enough, right where we saw it was a bunch of packed down long grass, as if something were sitting or laying there. I naturally messaged this friend who witnessed it with me as I was writing this, and he still remembers it clear as day, and the fact that it looked almost like a creature mixed with a human. We still have no clue what it was. Signed, Finn. And there it is, all I have for you tonight. So I'm anxious to hear all your thoughts and theories about these down in the comments below, but please, keep it respectful to the witnesses. And if you have a strange experience or unexplained encounter that you want to share, just send it to the email address in the description, and well, your story may just wind up in a future video. Anyways, thank you for riding with me tonight. It's good to be back. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker out.